Hello, hello, hello. Listen, today I am creating this video because it is something that is a topic that is very near and dear to me. And I just believe that it is something that might help those who would listen and those who would pay attention and find a way to bless you and to bless your congregation. As many of you know, I am an avid fan of the use of technology in our worship services, and there's so many ways that we can be creative in order for us to better hold the people's attention as well as engage and serve the present age. Let me just share with you just a few things today. I'm going to start calling this series there, and I hope that you will like and subscribe to the channel. How to use technology in worship and in preaching. Today, I'm going to talk about creativity in worship using technology, the using of technology, even in sermon introduction, of course, and even in sermon preparation. Now, technology has changed the way we live. It's changed the way we work. It has changed even the way we connect with one another. It has also transformed the way we worship, making it easier for people to connect with their faith and participate in their services. Yes, we have, because I want you to think about it and be honest. COVID-19, with everything that it may have done that was harmful, it actually ended up being a blessing in disguise because our ministries were able to be broadcast and be able to be streamed and to be shared with people beyond the four walls of the church. Hopefully, we learned a lesson from that in so many different ways. Now, why has technology enhanced our worship post-COVID? Number one, it is live streaming. Live streaming has revolutionized the way we attend church services. People who are unable to attend physically can still participate in the services by watching them online. I know we say, well, it creates a divide of people who are lazy and use streaming as an excuse to not attend church. But one of the things I found is that there are people who will listen to you, perhaps even on Facebook Live or on YouTube, which I'll speak to in another video. People still are participating because those people may not be able to make it to the services. They may live in another town. I'll have people listening, watching every Sunday, all the way from Seattle, Washington, over in the Dallas, Texas Metroplex area, and places even beyond that sometimes. So live streaming is very important as a part of technology and worship. And then as pastors, we can, as this series is designed for, we can take digital sermon notes, and so can your people. Instead of them having a bulletin, instead of them having a bulletin in their hands, most of them have the device in their hands or in their purse anyway, so they can worship with you and study with you by themselves, taking notes, texting them, sharing, however they would like to do it. And it allows also people such as myself and pastors to organize their services and then create different notes and then search for other sermon notes. And you can, on the fly, uh, find something that's going to help you enhance the sermon. Now, nothing's going to beat prayer and preparation, but sometimes you just need a little enhancement to make that worship service go. And technology affords that. Then, of course, there's social media. Social media, which some had considered once being almost demonic, I think we thought that it was. But it is a powerful tool for churches to connect with their congregations and even the wider community. There's a platform that it gives churches to share information about their events, their services, and other programs that the church may be having. The community wouldn't even know it if you were not sharing it in this mass media form called social media. And then there's also audio and video production. I'm a stickler for audio and video production because I want my streams to look good. And what teaches you, Pastor, is discipline. It teaches you the things that that your members or others who are in the building don't notice or don't see. And you have to be self-critical. So consequently, you want to have a worship service. You won't have anything that is as professionally produced as a mega church, a TD Jakes, or a Freddie Haynes, or any places such as that, or Joel Osteen. But you can have the best that you can have at your level of finance. I'm going to talk about that in another video, how to finance a technology platform uh, on the low, and I know how to do it. Trust me on that. I know how to do that. So you definitely need any questions about how to do that. I definitely can help you there. One of the things that I like to do too is to utilize social media and utilize technology in the worship service in order to it takes away the mundaneness of the announcements. Sometimes I watch people and they say, well, who are all about May babies, or who are all about May birthdays? And so consequently, here's what happens. Somebody raised their hand up over here. Somebody raised their hand up over there. But here's what you do. Go ahead, get that as an administrative function, find that out a month or two ahead of time. Hey, whose birthday? One Sunday, say, I need you to sign this sheet of paper. I need to know whose birthday is in this month. Just put that and maintain it as a record and have a database. So consequently, when that time comes, you'll have a list of names. Now, it just so happens to be May. And of course, my birthday is in this month. And I even took a little zinger that brought a laughter Sunday. All the best people are born in May. And what it does is it adds a breath of some levity to the worship service, but it does not take away from the seriousness of the hour that we are there. Now, even in this is something that you can also be creative for Veterans Day. This is just an example, or your church anniversary, but this happens to be a Veterans Day service that we utilize technology in order for us to do. And it turned out very, very well. I just had people to send me photos of themselves in their uniforms. Those who had them. And what we did was I created this PowerPoint. The musicians played Battle Hymn of the Republic, and we made presentations and showed the pictures of these soldiers. That's Brother Al O'Neill. This is Sergeant Major there, who you see he's those who don't know military ranks, a very decorated man who grew up in the St. Luke Church, and I thank God for him. And that's a young, very young Dr. Gregory Hudson on the right, and then to the left, I paired it with one of our former members, Mr. Worth Broom, and this would add to the atmosphere as people are able to see instead of us talking and reading. I just think that this is a brother and sister who are both officers. He's a full colonel, she's a lieutenant colonel, and these are Darren and Tanika Baisley, and they grew up in the St. Luke Church, and they're serving the country now on active duty. But to have a sister and brother officer in the United States Army is an accomplishment. So you can use it as an accomplishment as well. And this is an old throwback picture on that same service with his brother Tim Thomas. And this did him so much and did him so well for us to acknowledge that. That was Veterans Day. That was the way that we were being creative. So using technology, it's your friend. It is your friend, and it's a way for you to learn from it. But now let's get to my topic that I really want to spend time with today. Technology and even preaching. Hold on, Reverend, what are you talking about, Greg? What are you talking about, man? Well, Dr. Wayne McDill is the senior professor of preaching at the Southeastern Baptist Theological Seminary. He says that homileticians and preachers alike will see multimedia presentations as the future of preaching. In his book, 12 Essential Skills for Great Preaching, here he is, a conservative man, a conservative pastor who probably pastors a Southern Baptist church, or as a scholar perhaps has done all types of research, Greek, Hebrew, the culture, and the times of biblical days. But he says that this preaching will undergo a fundamental change, just as a preaching style appropriate in an earlier century may not be effective for modern listeners. Somebody needed to hear that because preaching styles in previous decades may need to adjust to changing conditions as technology has radically changed the way we communicate. And that means that proponents contend looking at the media technology as much more than a passing fad. But wait, watch this, but essential to your preaching. I want to show you guys something. I want to show you something. This past Sunday, I preached a sermon from Luke 18. You know the story of the blind beggar. The blind beggar, as we refer to him as, because in Luke 18, he is not given a name. But in this, I titled the sermon, Make Them Hear You. You know the text. It says in verse 37 and 38, they told him Jesus of Nazareth is passing by. He cried out, Jesus, son of David, have mercy on me. 39, verse 39 is where the message comes from. Those who led the way rebuked him and told him to be quiet, but he shouted all the more. In other words, you know this, you know the story. The more they told him to hush, the louder he became, because this man was determined to make the world hear him, because it was in him being heard. Listen, in him being heard, it's what led to his healing. Now, where's the technology in that? Well, I take this young lady right here and I introduce this young lady. This picture, Elizabeth Bonker. This young lady is autistic and deaf mute. She does not speak. She was diagnosed as this at 15 months old, but she had a brilliant mind. Her mother and some teachers began to see, and they knew there was something in there. And she began to use technology to speak for her. The technology read her brain waves, and she was able to give voice to that through technology. Now notice here, 15 months, diagnosed as autistic and mute, nonverbal at 15 months. But years later, this is her giving the commencement exercise at her college graduation, and it is being given through technology. Watch this. She said that in her life, she felt like she was trapped in a cage of silence. However, the technology made them hear her. You see the connection? The connection is you've got to find creative stories, and people will pay attention because they're interested in that, as opposed to a very simple introduction to a sermon, which there's nothing wrong with, but sometimes we have to be creative once again. Now, you know this text. This is from Luke 19. And where it says, and the Pharisees called to him from the crowd, teacher, make these folk hush. Again, he answered and said to them, if these should keep silent, the stones would immediately cry out. So listen, how do you find technology to fit this? Well, I'm a history, not necessarily a scholar, not at all, but I'm very well rounded at famous historical events. And so thinking about the noise that is taking place in Jerusalem that day, you know, this is the triumphal entry. People are there for the Passover. Some estimate almost 2 million people. So think about the noise and how noisy it is in that city. And then in this case, the Pharisees tell these people, y'all need to hush. Y'all need to be quiet. You need to be quiet. It's already noisy enough. Well, to hook people into the service and into the sermon, I introduced them to the volcanic eruption on the island of Krakatoa in 1883. It is believed that this sound was about 383 decibels. the loudest sound ever recorded in the history of mankind. 1883, Krakatoa. Now, if I just left it like this, explaining that, how there was noise and how loud it was, and comparing it, now it was not that loud. I'm sure that technologically it was not, but the noise itself reverberated around the world because they were praising God. So here's what I had to do. So in explaining to them Krakatoa, because the sound and the reverberation of Krakatoa was heard all the way to New York City. Now watch this. By me simply saying that, people they don't get it, because most people don't know where Indonesia is. So what did I do? I decided to put together this map to show people from Krakatoa to New York City. Here, look in the bottom there, the bottom portion of the screen. And here is the noise from that volcanic eruption that goes all the way across the Middle East, Southern Europe, there, and across the Atlantic Ocean, beginning in the Indian Ocean, way over to New York City. That sound that reverberated. Yes, that sound, and that's how sometimes we ought to be. And you can teach people that sound, that noise. How would it be if we put it in perspective of that day and show them how the sound, you're painting a picture. You're painting a picture using technology in a way that your words will not be able to do. Then this one right here. Grace is enough. 2 Corinthians 12, we all know the scripture, where he says, my grace is sufficient for you. Again, I'm a person who likes to study disasters and great rescues. So in order to introduce this sermon, I put on the screen the picture of the USS Pendleton. The USS Pendleton went through a sandbar and it broke in half. There were 32 men on board. There were 4 Coast Guardsmen who didn't even receive an SOS call, and they went on a suicide mission to go and rescue as many men as they could, to go rescue a ship that had broken and fallen in half. 4 Coast Guardsmen went to go and try to rescue as many as they could. It is told that these men who were on the ship as it was sinking and as they were awaiting their certain death, they began to sing Rock of Ages, cleft for me, let me hide myself in thee. After the miraculous rescue, one of the men who was rescued, believe it or not, you know what he said? He says, years later, I will be able to tell my children, I'll be able to tell my grandchildren, that it had not been for the very grace of God, I wouldn't even be here. So I opened that sermon up with that, and I could see that people were paying attention to the screen, but they were paying attention to me and paying attention to that story as well, because all of us, in some instances, may have been shipwrecked by life and problems. I don't want to stop preaching, but the truth is, had it not been for God's grace, that ties directly into the sermon. This is the last one I'm going to show you, I promise you. This is, of course, Daniel. This is actually Daniel chapter 6, I believe. And titled Sermon, the God Who Rescues. Well, in Daniel 6, you all know the story of Daniel. Daniel could have stopped praying openly. He could have prayed behind closed doors, but he chose not to. And so what happens? He ends up being thrown in this lion's den because of his faith. So instead of talking about Daniel at the beginning of the sermon, I used the technology to put on the screen this man here and tell the story of Elijah Lovejoy, who in 1802, born, I believe, in New York, and he became a publisher. He became a newspaper man, but most importantly, he became one of the martyrs for the abolition of slavery. That they had already come down, the mob, the anti-abolitionists, had come and burned his, had come and already burned down his printing shop. So he could no longer print paper, no longer print newsletters and newspapers discussing how slavery was a blight on the nation. And just like Daniel, all he had to do was to move away and stop preaching about the horrors and the immorality of slavery. But here's what happened. Mob came in, burned down his print shop again, but this time they left him dead. And his testimony was simply, because I stood for what was right, I was willing to go through the lion's dens of life and of society in order to make a difference in the world. So you're teaching here. You have this man up on the screen, you're telling his story, and people now are more engaged into your sermon. Listen, I need you to like and subscribe to the channel there, because I'm going to be posting these periodically. And because technology is here to stay, and let's use it wisely. Most of you know my email address and you know my number. But if you have any questions or suggestions and about as it relates to technology in church, some of us already have it and we're underusing it or not using it at all. And some of us don't have technology in a fashion that we should, but we ought to make that investment in it. Now, as I said earlier, I can help you. To develop technology, whether it's monitors and other things that you might be able to do, but it'll enhance that worship. Now, let me just say this. It's not going to replace a poor worship service. I don't want you to think that. And it's not going to replace poor preaching. But what we're talking about is making sure that it enhances your service. Listen, I look forward to hearing from you. And I want to thank you for listening. Hopefully, I've said something that has blessed you, because we have got to, we must, it is imperative that we serve this present age. And God has given us this gift of technology. I know you want to be blessed. And most of all, you want to see your church be blessed. God bless you. God bless you. You'll be hearing from me again. So thanks.